All right. And we are live. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining the fourth episode of Campfire. Really happy to see you all there. Virtually, of course, I don't really see you, I see the number. But today I'm really pleased to have Attila join us from New Jersey. Hi, Attila. How are you doing?
Everyone.
Attila and I would really try to figure out his audio before the stream, and I think it's going to be okay. I mean, we had a really interesting experiment with a microphone that you had since 2008, I
Yeah,
think. That seemed to be at the end of its life in some ways.
unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah.
It has a huge semantic value.
Yeah. Oh, so yeah, you're gonna keep it someplace in your heart at least. All right. So, hey, thank you very much, everyone, for joining. Just want to remind you to like and subscribe this stream. That's people what we do on YouTube. We ask people to like and subscribe before they've even had the chance to discover what we had to say. So I won't fail that tradition. Um, we are also gonna invite people to join the stream. I see Arash, you're joining here. We'll get to you in a few minutes when after we're starting with Attila. And you can ask all your questions in the chat either on Facebook, on YouTube, or on LinkedIn, and we'll be also answering those. So, hi, lady developer, great to have you here. Hi, John, thanks for joining. All right, so Attila, thank you for being here, being one of our guests. You are a graduate of the program. When did you graduate, actually, from the Full Stack Bootcamp?
I think it was this year or last year, maybe. Yeah, I recently, let's say, recently.
Recently, I think was it? I could tell actually. I think it was. Let me see. Yeah, actually, I don't know myself.
Yeah, I don't know
Yeah, with
either.
the COVID, with the pandemic, it's pretty hard
I
to
think
kind
it
of.
was this year. Sometimes I started January and then yeah, I think it was
January, you graduated in May.
yeah in May. Yeah,
Gotcha. All right. So, and we'll get to that in a second. What I want to start with is I want to start you being in Singapore right before COVID started.
yeah.
And I'd love for you to tell us what was your life like in Singapore? What was your job about? What were you doing over there? And then if you can tell us about that moment where, COVID hit and what you had to do then.
Yeah, we basically had a huge party, like 300 people on the street. No, that's just it was, really nice at the first because I visited the country, visited some friends. I'm planning to travel to Malaysia and visit the surroundings. I'm planning my divings and visiting a couple of diving sites. Actually, my friend was there who invited me up to Malaysia to meet with him. But then they said, all of a sudden there's no traveling because the cases started to rise. And ever since once they announced that, the things just escalated so quickly. But I ended up stranded in my room for weeks. And then actually, I was able to catch the last plane out of Singapore because they're shutting down the flights. And it was like a ghost city. Singapore is full with people, but when this happened, no one was on the street. When I was leaving, like 3 a.m., they stopped the car, the taxi that I called, the police, like, why are
Yeah.
we on the streets? And then I said, look, I'm going home. And basically, Changi is a beautiful airport, and I had it all to myself because no one
Wow.
was there. I made these creepy videos. It's a perfect occasion to make a zombie movie because literally it was empty. And yeah, so that was devastating in a sense that I had to cut my trip short because of
Yeah.
that, and it was just creepy, going home with these huge international airplanes with 15 people on them.
Oh, I was going to ask you. So only 15 people were just
15
lucky to
people
live.
on them, and well, in a way, I just laughed because like, well, if you bought like a first place ticket, you screwed yourself, because I had like 3 rows all by myself, and I was having like a nice bed in one row, the other row was my breakfast row, the other was my lunch row. So it was nice to be alone on a
Wow,
giant.
yeah, I imagine. Because the flight, it's like a 13, 14 hours flight, and you have to stop, right? You can't go straight to Singapore, can you?
Oh, they raised that. That's actually the longest commercial flight. That's what I took from New York to Singapore when I went there. But back then, when I came back, I first went to Japan, and then
Yeah.
from Japan to Chicago, and from Chicago to New Jersey.
Wow. Okay. Well, that must have been really stressful. You were probably super happy to be back home. We have Arash here, who's just joined us, and then Ryan, Keith, and Thomas. We see you on the chat. So maybe before we actually continue our conversation, Attila, let's bring Arash on the floor and see what he wants to talk to us about. And Arash, if you have your microphone and video, please switch it on. That'll be awesome. All right. Arash, you are with us. Can you switch on your mic and video?
Yes, my mic is on now. Hi.
Hey, yes. Do you have your
Actually,
video as well?
no, my video is not ready yet. Uh, I was looking for this new environment. How can I type my messages?
Oh, well, typically you will go on YouTube to ask your questions and type your message, but now you're live with us. You're live
Oh, great.
in the stream. So if you have any question, just ask it live to us. Attila is here with us. He's a graduate and also someone who's been who's had actually a job in software development. So you can ask your question.
Sounds good. Actually, I don't know completely Attila yet. I'm waiting for the complete, introduction, and after that, I may ask my questions. Thank you.
Oh, okay, that sounds good. Well, and good luck then, since you're just about to start. I will remove you now. All right. Well, so what not to do if you want to join us? Be ready with your question. Have your mic and video on so that we can have a conversation. You can click the link here that the Nibot is sharing on the stream, url.newcamp.co/dial-in. So Attila, so you are in New Jersey now. You made it back from Singapore, and I know you've been very much into 3D modeling. So you were in tech, I would say, um, before the pandemic and before actually switching over to coding. You were in tech and you were doing 3D modeling. I hear for sustainable fashion shows. Is it sustainable? Is the term?
Yeah, well, that was the name of the show in Brooklyn in 2020, or was it 21? I think it was 20. And yeah, it was 2020. So the issue was that because of the pandemic, you can't have models like walking around and all the people makeup,
Oh,
but you still need to present your clothes. But then just to show clothes on like hanging, that's not very attractive. So what they wanted is to design like the clothes without a model, so that the clothes itself is animated and walking. And they sent me images of the clothes, of the garments that they designed, and then I 3D modeled it and then animated it. And then that was basically what they showed during the show. And I think you have the link. If you share that, you can go to the virtual
yeah.
catwalk.
Let me share that link to your. It's your own website that you've developed, and that's where you can look at the 3D modeling that you did for the show. So that makes perfect sense. So it was very much a response again to the pandemic and figuring out, okay, how are we going to show our clothes. So were the clothes also digitalized?
No, I actually just had an image, so I have to extract the texture and map it onto pretty much what I saw on the picture. I have to recreate the whole thing in 3D.
Oh, I see. So you had from a still image, you had to
Yeah,
kind of reconstruct the
yeah,
3D of the clothes. Wow, that
yeah.
must have been super
lot
challenging.
of, lot of interpolation and guessing on it, but then eventually it made it to the air.
Yeah. So the Nightbot is a little bit confused because he's talking about the early bird that expired actually last Monday, not this Monday. So let me actually try to see if I can pause that. Let me do this. Hold on. How do I do this? Um, there we go. I can do that now. Disable. All right. So it should stop doing that post now. So can you now tell us a little bit about the moment that you decided to learn to code? When did it all started? When did you decide that you were going to spend some time learning to code?
Yeah, it was a journey, and it started relatively early. But the funny thing is, when I started my career, my original career is experimental neuropsychology. And the reason why I took this because I hope that I don't have to learn math and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I got into the university, I was so happy, and my first class was advanced statistics. So there you go with math. And then I have to work with experiments, right? So I have to work with MATLAB, which is eventually coding.
Yeah.
And so that's where it all started. It was a long, long journey, but eventually, when I finished my PhD, I coded my own eye tracking software, and that's how the whole thing escalated into a point where my next appointment, I actually had to digitize an entire clinical procedure to screen patients with schizophrenia. And it had to be a portable device. So what I did is basically coded an Android application which works with two phones, where one phone you can put into the Google Cardboard and give it to the patient, and the other phone is connected via Bluetooth to this phone, and you can write the experiment, basically what the patient sees, and you just record the answers. Because
That's amazing.
tell
How
me.
so there's a lot of junior developers or aspiring developers that are talking about the imposter syndrome. How did you get to a place where you were self-taught at the time? You didn't, or did
Yeah,
you join? You were self-taught.
yeah.
You didn't have a computer science background.
No, nothing like that.
You had experience doing 3D modeling,
Yeah, that's all I had.
and you built I mean, I wouldn't know where to start to build that kind of app that actually you have two synchronized devices.
Yeah.
How how much time did you spend building
Oh,
that?
that was like at least a year and a half or two. Because I literally, when I first heard of this project, and then I have to search how to do this, and then
Yeah.
Android Studio. Okay, let's see what is that. And everyone who knows with Android Studio, they know it's a super easy and straightforward thing to work with, right? Especially if you have no idea what JavaScript or Java is. So it was, I'm not gonna lie, it was really painful.
Oh, I imagine you had to start from zero
From zero,
to
yeah.
something that extremely complex.
Yeah.
Wow. We have Keith here, John, who joined us. Keith, we're going to bring you on stage. So switch on your camera if you want. So Keith, let's bring you in, and then we'll get back to that app. I kind of have questions for you on this. Hey Keith, you're
How you
live.
doing, Attila? How you guys doing?
Pretty good. Thanks for joining.
Thanks for hosting this. Is very informative and beneficial. Thank you.
Do you have questions for us?
Yes, I have a couple questions. So Attila, so you come from a background you were involved in 3D modeling before. While you were in New Camp, what activities did you pursue to kind of help prepare for the job market and or hone your skills in addition to boot camp, if any?
Yeah, so I chose Bootcamp because of, I don't know if you have heard what we talked about previously, how painful it was to be self-taught in Android Studio, and then I realized I'm missing all the basics that I should have, and so it's time to actually learn this. And so that was when I chose Bootcamp as a tool to prepare me for like a real coding job, like real front-end development. Besides Bootcamp, I did a lot of online research on free materials like Free Bootcamp or Code Wars or what's the other one? Cybercoder. So these are all free platforms where you can actually test your skills, have little experiments with the code, and read a lot. So really, if what I learned is if you want to get into this field, you have to make this as your hobby. Because there's no such thing as like, oh yeah, I want to code, but oh, here's the weekend, I'm gonna go out and do this. Oh, it's 5 a.m. or 5 p.m. I'm gonna go out and do this. No, you actually go out and code because otherwise, at least for me, it was a really, really heavy journey. And so it requires 24 hours, really intense. But if you enjoy this and first steps are hard, but when you build your first application and it actually works, then you just go with it and you never want to stop.
Okay, excellent. And what was your experience like following graduation? Did you just jump right into the job market and start applying for jobs? Or did you take additional steps to help you prepare for the job market?
Oh, look, during Boot Camp, you actually can join in channels where they post jobs, they post ideas. People are willing to review your portfolio, willing to help you with your resume, everything. They give you advices. And so I already started, as soon as I joined in, I started to explore, ask people, started to build my portfolio, ask feedback. And then, so yeah, after graduation, I really just continued. But after graduation, I have this portfolio, what I built, what's actually being shared. That's a product of basically Bootcamp. That's what I did during the Bootcamp.
Okay. And following graduation, how long did it take you to get employment after graduation? Soon or a few months?
Relatively soon, but one thing I learned, and my mentors at Bootcamp also told me, like, look, be realistic of the expectations. You learn React, but it's a completely different thing to actually have a job in React. So you have a basic understanding, that's fine, but when you get your first dev job and you just look at Jira, that's where you assign your task and then do this, you don't have time to Google it most of the time. You just have to execute. But what you can already do is basically, you will end up, even if you never learn HTML after the bootcamp, you're going to be in a pretty decent place to start as like an email developer. And that's what I did. Look for HTML email development, and that will take you a place, as like a stepping stone to your next job. That will be in React.
Okay, excellent. Do you have any, obviously, in addition to making coding your hobby and doing it 24, doing it as much as often, do you have any additional advice for people who are going to graduate soon, or for future graduates to get more involved, to land their junior development job?
What helped me a lot is that I chose a project before I even joined, or when you join, you can choose a project that you will work on, and they actually give you pretty nice guidelines of what that could be, that you actually enjoy to work on. So I choose it to be my portfolio, which if you want to go ahead and apply to dev jobs, I think it's good. If not, you already have one. So and start to work on that, and that will brings you in a place that you just want to do it all the time. And while you're doing it, first off, you're building up a nice portfolio. Second off, you're practicing. Third off, you can show up something. Hey, besides the portfolio, I made this and this and this, and you put that in the portfolio, which can be any of your bootcamp projects. So that's what I would suggest. Start to build something that motivates you. It doesn't have to be your portfolio. Just anything, a single ad, like an ad that takes a picture and then you can draw a mustache on it. I know it sounds simple, but if you do it well, it's gonna rock. And then you can just build it up, make it more complex over time.
Okay, excellent. Well,
I really like that example as an app. Take a picture and draw a mustache on it. It sounds simple, but it does involve a ton of stuff.
Yeah, and especially if you think of React Native, that's not gonna be like you just want.
I love it. Take a picture and draw a mustache. That's brilliant. Hey Keith, how far along are you in your own journey?
I'm finishing Python with SQL. Tomorrow is my last workshop, and then I go into the last class, which is DevOps.
Cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Did we are you the Keith that I had a chat earlier? No,
No.
I remember having a chat with a Keith. All right, my bad.
No problem.
Yeah. Anyways, I was looking for it. So Attila, so you, and thank you by the way, Keith, for joining.
Yeah.
I'll actually remove you from the floor now. And good luck with the end of SQL and the DevOps that comes right
Thank you.
after.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Attila.
So you are building that Android app that needs to have two actually app connected to one another using Wi-Fi and WebSockets, I guess. How did you connect those two? Yeah, Wi.
So it was via Bluetooth because it was
Oh,
like
Bluetooth.
proximity, and the idea was to bring the test to the patient rather than the patient to the test, because due to the condition of these patients, psychotic disorders, they are notoriously unreliable to show up in screenings, and so the idea is to have this in a hand of like a social worker, and they can go into any place. But if you don't have Wi-Fi, if you don't have
Oh,
connection,
you're right.
it would
That's
not work.
super
So I
cool.
have to think of that. So the only thing you can rely on is the Bluetooth. And as soon as you have Wi-Fi, the data can go to a server. But meanwhile, you have to communicate.
Oh, that's super smart. So yeah, Bluetooth has the method of communication between the devices,
Yeah.
and then you're waiting for Wi-Fi to be there to be able to upload the information to the cloud. Or
Yeah.
that's really amazing that you did that. So, and what you were saying is, you started working on this project before joining the coding bootcamp,
Yeah.
completely self-taught, and then you realized that it was very painful for you to work on it without having the basics.
Yeah.
So did you continue to work on this project while you were at the bootcamp?
No, this project was actually became commercialized because it's a patented technology now and being tried at Rochester University. And I think because this was at Rutgers University, we are looking for potential customers now. We just have to have patients, but because of the COVID, you can just walk up to a patient and give them equipment.
That's right. My mind is blown right now. I had no idea you actually created that type of ingenious applications. That's awesome. So you're joining the bootcamp. So actually, let me ask you, who found New Camp?
It was my wife, not me.
Tell me about that. So how did it come about? Like, how did your wife suddenly find New Camp for you? What's the story behind that?
I was complaining because, just a little bit win back to Rutgers. I have a wonderful supervisor, Thomas Papatomas, and I was worked with him, and he was, to be honest, I can thank him a lot. He was a genius and a very, very, very powerful person. And he told me that, look, if you want to go this way, you probably need to learn something more. And then I agreed with him. So I looked for boot camps, but I was like, I don't know which one to choose. This one is expensive. That one is too intensive. And then all of a sudden, my wife told me like, hey, look, you are in New York, like at least close to New York. Here's Boot Camp. It's online and it's quite affordable. And look, it's a beautiful website. And I just looked at it and I really went with it, like on the day.
Oh wow! Immediately, yeah, that's cool. We see that sometimes. So kind of looking internally, right? When we think about students and the time it takes them to register, early on, I always had the belief that choosing a coding bootcamp was something that would take months, right? You do your research, you're looking around, and then so you're getting those emails, you're getting the phone calls from some bootcamps, and then at some point you decide to register. And so for me, I was like, this is a process that's going to take a month, 2 months, 3 months. And then we're looking at the data of the people who register with New Camp. And we do see what you're describing here, which is we didn't know the customer before, like we didn't have the email. We never sent an email to that person. And all of a sudden that person registers. And we're like, what just happened here? That's kind of surprising to us. So yeah, you were one of those people who just went there, looked at it, did a little bit of research, and then registered. So how was it? I mean, can you tell us about your experience during the boot camp? And were you employed at the time? Did you have a daily job?
I had, but then it was a contract. I'm having research contracts,
Gotcha.
but it was ended, and then so I went with just the boot camp, and I was relatively happy with it because I had then more time to sit and code
Yeah.
and to learn. So that helps a lot. But due to the flexibility of these hours and the videos and the login, if you do have a job, it's still manageable because I had one when I started, and there was no interference with it.
Yeah, we see a few people actually doing the boot camp in a way full time, even though it's designed to be part time. It's designed, to your point, to help. I mean, to allow people who have a day job to learn. Nights, weekends, evenings. But yeah, it's great. You were able to do it full time actually. Um, Something I don't ask very much, and I want to ask that more, um, is your instructors. Can you tell us the highlights or constructive feedback as well? I mean, I don't want it to be kind of an advertisement, but can you tell us about your instructors?
Oh yeah, please don't ask their names because I'm really bad at names. However, I have one thing that was common in all of the instructors is that they were really helpful and they were willing to listen my whining and my temper tantrums and like this is not working, and sending them codes and emails. Hey, fix this. Why is it not working? They were absolutely patient and just there was one instructor, I think it was Kim or Ken, and I'm really sorry, I don't know, but he had a very nice approach of not telling you the answer straightforward, but just like lead you through it. Like, for instance, I have a problem with destructuring an object and accessing to its values, and then and I said, hey, why is my array is not working? And he said like, okay, so what are the things that you have in the array? I said objects. Okay, so what do objects have? I said, key and value pairs. Of course I have to have the key, and then comes the value if you want to print out. So it was really nice because he let me actually figure it out by myself, just
Yeah.
giving hints, and that's if you know the psychology of learning, that's like tenfold better than just you have to answer straightforward because then you don't think about it.
No, it's true, and it's quite great to have that kind of instructor. I mean, a lot of our instructors are really coming from the industry, and I would say most of them don't have that educational background. So we do try to educate them on learning psychology or learning techniques. But whenever there's an instructor that really can combine their technology knowledge with knowing how to transfer that knowledge, uh, very often that becomes a rock star and someone that really students really like. And very often that's also an instructor that really enjoys doing it as well. So someone who's going to come back and want to do it again. Hey, I'm seeing a few questions online. And by the way, you can join url.newcamp.co/dial-in if you want to join Attila and myself live and ask your questions. But until then, I remember seeing a question here from Nature City Explorer, who's asking, I do notice many job ads want you to know 15 things and want two or more years of experience. Do you have any tips on how to get hired? What would you say to that, Attila?
Oh, well, 2 or more years. I never seen that. I see 5 to 10 years. So unfortunately, that's the case, and most of the time they want you to know all kind of frameworks that actually 2 years is not even enough to become familiar with those. If you think of realistically, but just try to think it this way. You, I mean, be realistic with your abilities. And as I said, and I can't emphasize this enough, like don't try to go for these hardcore React jobs for the first time, even though you like React. just try to get familiar with being a developer itself. Like go and become a digital developer, a digital designer, which means you can design emails, HTML emails, panels, banners, ad banners. And for that, you don't, they might ask you, okay, to have 1 or 2 years of experiments, but if you show them like a simple email and you can just put together an HTML email within seconds, just very simple, like, hi, this is my first email, and then put in an image, that would be enough for the client, because this would be, responsive and everything, and you can learn about it, how to accomplish that. But if you can show that in your portfolio and talk about it, remember, you have to talk about it. You don't have to talk about like, yeah, I learned this and that and that and that, even though they ask you to know those things. You have to show the experience of your actual coding, and that's what gets them. If you talk about confidently of how to put this together, and then you have a win-win. Other than that, make sure you look in the job postings at Noobcamp, because this is where I found that maybe you can just start as an email developer, and that to me was actually what the first step to become a front-end developer, and then helped a lot.
No, that's great. Yeah, there's a ton of opportunities out there. I mean, you talk about HTML developer, but there's a ton of platforms like Shopify.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a ton. WordPress is old, but there's still a lot of business to be made on WordPress. And of course, that's not what we train you for. But the hard part is getting the first job. And I've said before, you really shouldn't be picky in getting your first job. You want to get that job that is in the tech space, and it's not going to be your last job. Far from it.
Yeah.
6 months, a year later, you're going to have a second job, and that's going to be the job that you really want.
Yeah.
But for many people, you just want to get that junior in front of your name taken away so that you're just a web developer. And so what I will add to that, to the question is, when you see 15 things listed, if you have 3 of those, you can already start to apply. Very rarely the hiring manager is going to find the person that has all those 15 things. And most likely out of those 15, there's really 3 that are super important. And the other ones they're still listed the same way, but they're going to be nice to have. And you're going to be able to learn them. So I'll say 15, if you have 3, that's matching, go for it. 2 years, if you have 0, but you have experience, go for it. The worst that can happen is nothing. That's not worse. You're not going to get the job, but you will have had the experience. What I would say as well is, and I know you've applied to a ton of jobs, right? And maybe we should talk about that. But you really want to spend time also going deeper in the job that you're looking at. So that position here, or maybe another one, do your research the company, research the hiring manager. If it's in your local region, drive there, go say hi, introduce yourself. There's a lot of things that you can do to be successful that go way beyond applying automatically on LinkedIn or applying on Indeed and things like that. So yeah, thank you for asking the question. Alicia is saying, hey, New Camp is the fire, or New Camp Campfire. Thank you, Alicia. Thank you for being here. And don't hesitate to join as well on the live link. Let's talk about, let's try to answer Seth. So Seth, he's working 11 a.m., 8 p.m. every day. And finding anything that fits that schedule is super hard. I hear you. So I hope you're able to, I don't know if you're in New Camp now, but I hope you're able to actually make it work in the morning, and maybe sometimes in the evening. These are long hours, are they? Well, it's kind of still 8 hours, but yeah, different shift. Yeah, Seth, I hope it's working for you. I hope the Saturday morning workshop is working for you as well. Maybe you have to leave early to start your day, but good luck with that. So, Attila, let's talk about that first job then. When did you really start that job? Did you start right after the bootcamp or during the bootcamp?
Well, I think it might be pretty close to the end or right after the end. I
Yeah.
can't recall this, but yeah, my first job was email developer, and
So how long did you stay in it? And how? Yeah, tell us about that journey. How long did you stay in it? Then what? Which job did you get after that?
yeah. So I have to tell everyone. So it's not like you apply and you get a job. This is a painful, full with sorrow and suffering journey. You have to apply, and I'm not kidding. At least every day to 10. And you know, if you're looking at like how many years they ask and what do they want you to know, you're just going to get discouraged. It doesn't matter. Just send your CV. It's like literally just shooting it out there, and then some of them might stay on the wall. Who knows? But this is what I had. The second thing is that, you know, they said these 15 things you need to know and this much experience you have to have. That's just their ideal.
Yes.
They're not going to find a person with that particular skill set. You know why? Because they already have a job. They are not looking for a job. If someone would to really have that, they would not looking for a job because they already have. So yeah, so and try to become friends with one or two agents. It's really easy because as soon as you register for like what did I use? I use tons of them like online job, remote jobs. People are just gonna send you emails like, "Hey, this is me," and then eventually, you know, they find your resume on LinkedIn. Oh, one thing, just make sure your LinkedIn is professional. Like, make sure
Yeah.
no matter what you did, some coding has to be in there. So update that. And so just become friends with an agent, or in LinkedIn you can connect with them like, hey, I'm looking for this job, so such and so. And eventually you will gonna have interviews, and they're not going to call you back. But after certain amount of time, you're gonna get called back, and then you're gonna have that job. And then, so my first job was an email developer. I stayed there for 3 months because then they terminated the contract for all the team. It was supposed to be a full-time job, but that was my first tech job. And I have to tell you, it's oh, I wanted to be tech, I wanted to be a developer, but then when you become one, it's not that fun anymore because you know you never worked as a dev, and everything is new is of course going to be hard and stressful. So that's why I would recommend to have like an easy, like a relatively easy job for the first time, because that will prepare you for the next step. Because after this, I applied for another job. With now having experience, it was much more easier. And on the first interview, they said there's not going to be a second round for me because if I want a job, I can have it. And this is what experience does to you. Because now, and I realized it doesn't matter what's in your CV. It's the first thing when you start to talk about it. Real life examples, it's what they go for. And I had like 3 month extreme pressure and stress, and I talked about it. Like, look, this is what we had. We had 3 clients. We have prioritized. We have to go this. I have to upload it to a server, and it didn't work. I have to change the HTML file. Then I have to update it. Then the large files were not loading it. Then I have to minify the PNG and so on. So when you go into technical details and they see you have experience, then you're done. Your CV can have little horses and sunshine, literally, because one of the interviewers said he never even looked at my CV, but he thinks it's good what I just said, and then they would like to try me out. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's so true. The first job is the hardest. That's the one you're going to feel the most pain. You're going to send those 200, 300 resumes. You cannot be picky. You have to take the first job knowing it's going to really get you into the industry. And then it gets so much better. And you're right. It's because you're not just talking about your education anymore. You're not just talking about, project portfolio. You're actually talking about real life experience in the world of tech. And that already sets you apart. So let's actually talk about, there's a question from Venus, and then I'll go back in time. Alberto has another question, but I think that's very relevant to what we're discussing here. What realistically should be on your resume as a junior developer? So you're looking for your first job. What do you put on your resume? What did you have on your resume?
So I think this is a very neat suggestion, and I don't know whom I heard this from, but you need to show client developer relationship. And you say, yeah, but you have to have a job for them. No, look at this. You ask one of your friends, your mom's, your dad's colleague who needs a personal web page. And you can build up a personal web
Yeah.
page, right, from HTML. It doesn't even has to be React. But then you have a client developer relationship. And then, your friend or your mom's friend or whoever will tell you, hey, it has to be like this. It has to be like that. It has to look like this. I want this feature. I want that feature. And then you will realize that, being a developer is a little bit more than talk about like, the GS code. It's also like how you understand the client's wishes and how you execute it and how you transform it into visual or a functional component on the website. And that you can put into your resume, like as a freelancer, you work with a client and this was your task and this was you do. And that's a tech experience.
That's huge. You're so right. That's huge. So one thing I say as well that goes along those lines is you live in a city, and I bet that if you draw a circle, 10-mile circle, and you go talk to a restaurant, you go talk to, all the local shops, and you look up their websites, most of them are going to be ugly and super outdated. You go in there and you say, I'm going to make your website so much better. I'm going to add checkout. People are going to be able to buy online, and I'll do that for free. You take 2-3 jobs for your local neighborhood. You're going to feel good because you're helping your community. And you're right. These are your first customers, your first client. They're going to be happy with you. You're going to have that experience. And that's what you put on your resume. So much more powerful than project that you do in a vacuum, right? You need to have a purpose when you work on something. It cannot just be you wake up, you wonder, okay, what am I going to put in there? You need to have a real purpose. And that comes from the customer that you work with. I could not agree more with that, Attila. I hope that was helpful, Venus. So I don't know how far along you are in your journey, but think about helping your neighbors. Think about discussing with your friends, building their personal webpage, just like Attila mentioned, and that's what you put on your resume. So actually, before going to the next question, I love to ask you, so you have a really inspiring story from being a self-learner, being able to actually code something quite complex, but then wanting to get back to the basics, going through the coding boot camp and getting a job. That's the first job, and then you get the second job. Where do you see yourself? Like, where do you see yourself in 2 years? What do you want to do in this industry now that you're in?
Well, that's a good question. So I actually have two contracts. Both of them are online. One is email developer and asset developer for a pharmaceutical company. The other is a React job. I'm really happy with it. I'm doing
Oh, cool.
prototypes for a potential website that will screen people's skills. So during the bootcamp, I learned React Native, and that was another highlight when I realized that you can actually have a link and the app downloads on your own phone, and that's your app. And I had an idea by then, and I still have it. And it's this is relatively still new to me. This whole app thing. It's just like a year or so. But when I get more comfortable and actually being able to watch monitors more than just 16 hours a day, I am trying to continue with my little native app because I have a business idea that I want to execute. And
Oh, that's great. So you want to be an entrepreneur. You want to create your own startup and your own product.
Yeah.
And you don't want to talk about it too much because you're worried about.
No, I mean, come on. Who would want to start a startup idea? You have to actually work on it.
No, it's true. Yeah, but you can. You're right. There's a lot of people are worried that other people are going to steal their ideas. It never happens, or very rarely. Except recently, there was Streamlabs was kind of caught doing that.
I would love to learn it. The idea is basically just, you know how these people who are having like illnesses or coping with a family member who had illnesses, and there are communities that they are self-helping, and sometimes they need counseling. And since I was a psychologist, I also learned a lot about what makes recovery more easier, or coping more easier. And one of the variables is just basically seeing a smiling face of another people. It doesn't have to be someone just someone who said like, "Hey, I feel your pain. I'm with you. I'm sending you a prayer," or "I am with you. I love you. Send you kisses." But how can you get that? People just not going to walk in front of you and say that. And imagine an application where all these people are registered who would need help, and so you're laying in your bed in the hospital and just open up this public application, and you see a lot of smiling faces and like 5 seconds video that, "Hey, I'm with you," various people who don't even know you, just saying this positivity.
Wow.
And listening them and just scrolling through of it. And for the day you feel like lots of other people are there, and you can read some messages like, "Hey, my son is suffering from the same thing, God bless you," blah 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 blah. So you see some kind
I
of
love it.
information in that. And the thing is like, send a smile. And it's a simple application, record your video and send it, post it on the server. And I already looked up Amazon Web Services, how you can moderate these videos, so people only post what they're supposed to post. And they're a pretty good AI for that. But to incorporate it in the system, that's going to be like a hardcore undertaking. So that's going to be a massive thing. But I already had tested an EC2 web space for that. So there you go.
I love the idea. It's meaningful, right? There's so many social apps, that lack meaning. I mean, TikTok, and there's so many YouTubers and YouTube and Facebook videos, blah blah blah. Being able to find meaning in social, for the good, right? It's super rare, and I think that's a simple idea, and oftentimes the simplest idea are kind of the hardest to execute, because it really needs to be done super well and right. I'm looking forward to seeing that. Yeah, it's really inspiring as well.
I had a couple of, at least two target, because there's actually a business model behind it. It's not just that, but
Yeah, that's right. How do you make money out of it? I don't know.
and two target clients I have, but to execute this whole thing, because it sounds super easy and yeah, let's do it, but it's probably the hardest thing I ever going to do. And after this, I really don't want to do anything more, because if you think of the depth of what can go wrong with these applications and how you
Yeah.
set them up, it's at this point, sometimes I think I'm not even sure if this is going to be possible to execute.
I hear you, because you have to think about moderation. I mean,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And
you could think there could be bad actors in that type of network that are actually trying to harm people.
the trolls, yeah.
Yeah.
And then the AI. I read the AI on Amazon Web Services. It's really good, but it only filters out nudity, if I can say that,
Yeah, that's right.
and bad words. But you don't have to use bad words and nudity in order to hurt someone psychologically. And that's what I'm think that this is a nice idea, but not sure if it's realistic to be executed.
Well, it's because it's so hard that it could be super unique. Have you
Yeah.
talked to, I don't know, AI specialists, machine learning specialists, people who could
Um,
actually maybe crack the code of finding that type of filtering? It's not profanity, it's mental harm type of filtering.
um, I, you, there's a whole literature on this, and basically detecting people's psychological intentions on gaze and anything like that, eye gaze. But so yeah, I mean it's really difficult. I mean to think of the back end of this thing is going to be like 1,000 times more robust than what TikTok had, if you
Yeah.
think of it. So and it's not going to be like the most popular thing in the world, but because it's just for specific people, right? So yeah, we will see.
Wow. I think it's brilliant. If you can pull it off, it's brilliant. All right. Hey, there's a question from Alberto. How to stay motivated? It's kind of open-ended, and it's kind of wide in terms of scope. But you have a psychological background, psychology background. What would you answer to that?
Yeah, that's the question of questions, and perhaps one of the most important questions above all: how to stay motivated. Well, as I said, what helped me, and I know you can generalize this, but in the mainstream, to stay motivated is when you want something, and just you have to think how badly you want that thing, and the more badly you want that thing, you become more motivated. So how badly you want to become a developer, it's not enough. How badly you want to create your portfolio is better, but how badly you want to learn how to express yourself digitally, it's even better. So you have to find something that makes you go, if your hobby are cars, okay, let's do a simple web page that shows a car, and if you click on it, it changes its color. Let's go for that. And now if that works, okay, how about opening the door? How about rotating it? How about getting more complex and more complex? But since you like cars, you're just gonna work on that because you like to see, you like to feel the experience, what it is. Unless you don't find something that drives you like that, as I said, unless you don't find something that is your hobby and somehow you can connect it to coding, you're not going to be motivated, because then it just becomes a chore. It becomes something that
Yeah.
you have to do. And something you have to do, your brain realizes, and you're not going to do it at all, because the brain is like that. If you have to, you just don't.
So, there are people that want a career in tech because they're not satisfied with their current way of living. They're not satisfied with their job. They're not satisfied with their level of compensation. And there is that thing about coding where you can learn to code without having a 4-year degree. So it gives a second chance to a lot of people. What would you tell someone whose primary motivation is a better life, better compensation, um, and they want to spend time doing coding and getting a job because of that? What would you tell those people?
Um, Well, they need to understand that coding is hard. I mean, life of a developer, even though you get to sit home, you're gonna get sick of sitting home in front of your computers. If you don't happen to be enjoy it and just do it for the money, it's gonna be like any other job. You're gonna hate it. If you don't find it like satisfactory, the fact that oh, you put together a code and now it works, and it doesn't give you the relief, okay, now I can do this, it's not worthy. For the sake of just having a better paying job that you hate. What's the difference between having a job that you hate and it doesn't pay better? And you would say the money. Yeah, but you can't enjoy the money because coding is at least twice as hard as when you're having a job that you already know. So that would not be sufficient for wrong. I mean, it's a good motivator, but when you find yourself in your first dev job, you will realize that it's just like any other job. It's like, da-da-da-da-da-da. And it's not like you get up at 5 p.m. or 5:30. No, you continue at least 8 to 9,
Yeah.
because there are sometimes problems that you cannot solve during your regular hours, and no matter how seasoned you are, you just have to sit there for the entire night. And so keep this in mind. Of course, it's money. If money, it's like you're overall and you doesn't care, then go for it. I mean, then that's definitely you. If but if you shovel coal, that pays well, as, just as well as this. So think of it as this way.
Yeah, I know, it's very true. I like what you're saying. You may earn more money, but you're not going to be able to enjoy that additional money. And at the end of the day, that's all it's all about. Thank you. Um, so if anyone wants to join Attila and I, have a chat, you can click that link, url.newcam.co/dial-in. Switch on your mic, switch on your camera, and you can be here live on stage with us and have a chat. I was really let me actually see what I oh yeah, we kind of skipped that part. So from the conversation, Attila, you mentioned that you have a PhD in psychology.
Yeah.
So quite high degree. I should have been talking to you and addressing you as doctor. By the way, I apologize for that.
Oh, please don't do that.
Yeah. Can you tell me what you realized early? Well, tell me how having a PhD in psychology helped you or did not help you get a job in tech.
It helped. First of all, I have to mention my supervisor at Rutgers, Thomas Papa Thomas, because he was really kind enough to let me actually chose this path in a way that he saw that I want to code, and then he gave me tasks to code. Because you can do many things as an experimental psychologist. One is to code experiments, and so that is what I wanted to do, and that is what I did for years, and it helped me a lot in one way to understand, when people said like, hey, this is this thing, it has to do this and that, now it's your turn to translate it into functions. And this is kind of a skill that you learn early on in New Camp, actually, because they said, okay, our app has to do this. Okay, what is that this? Just slide it over this little tab here. Okay, so how do you execute the function? And so you can hear how they explain this, and then you need to understand and translate it into code in your head. And so this is what helped me a lot, as like a step forward to this tech industry, to being able to understand what people say and understand how that would be reflected in code and functions and, X equals Y.
Great. Yeah, I mean, definitely when you think about UI, UX, you really have to build empathy with your potential user and how he's going to react to the experience. I was thinking as well that I have that in my notes that you had the mention that you had a PhD in psychology in your resume early on.
Oh, yeah.
Well, so
That
you know where I'm going. So tell me about that.
Yeah, that's not helping. So if you do have a PhD in psychology, try not to flap that in your resume if you are applying for tax, because and this is just me personally. I had a lot of not positive experiences because of that. Someone even asked me like, "You spend a lot of time in academia. Why are you want to get here? This is interesting. This is not for you." So if you're coping with that thing, think of your experiences during PhD and trying to, as I said, translate it into client-developer relationships. Let that be the slightest thing. If you put something into an Excel table, that is good enough. If you were able to do a simple HTML file that shows up patient one, that's great. Now put it, client needed to register patient's name on an online platform. And then this sounds really nice. And what you did really is put HTML files up there. And when you click on it, it show the name. And that's what it is. You did that. So that you can talk about it, how you understood the client's needs and how you executed the simplest way. And then there you go. There's your experience. You can do this, and especially after bootcamp, you can even put together a React site that's even more grandiose. But don't think of that. Just simple things, like really, really simple things, and have tons of things to talk about it. Like, how do you execute the HTML code? Why did you put this function here? Or why did you even chose this color? You believe it or not, on font, on color, typography, you can talk 1.5 hours simply just an and, the word and. How should it look like? Where should we put? Should the comma be close? Should the comma be far? Should the color be darker or should it be pure black? What would be the background? And they having this conversation, I might say the designers, like 1.5 hours just at that. And you can do the same thing.
So we're very close to ending the show. It's been a real pleasure having a conversation with you, Attila. Really impressed with your journey, with your future as well. I want to just mention that Arash also thinks that as a researcher in persona, which I believe is probably what Arash is doing, you can be the best by your education. So absolutely in the product management space of really defining products, having a PhD in psychology will help you. So again, Attila, it was really a pleasure having you here. Thank you for taking the time to share back your experiences with graduates and potential students. Do you have any final thoughts or any closing thoughts that you would like to share with everyone joining?
Oh yeah, thank you for having me, and I hope at least a little bit I give you some hints of at least what might help me, and hopefully my advices will help you too in some way. And remember to stay motivated, find something that you like to do,
Yeah.
and try to make your coding as your hobby or connect it to your hobby. And then it will go, and don't have high expectations for your first job. Just get that first job, and remember, just like to talk about your experiences, build that little stupid little site for your friend, and then that's a client developer relationship, and put like three of those in there, and learn the lingo of how tech people talk about this, and then you will win your first interview.
That's great. Thank you so much, Attila. I wish you the best for your product idea. I think it sounds fantastic. I hope you'll find the AI model that works, or that you'll build it for make it work. I'd love to hear the news of that as you make progress. And next week we will not have a show. It's Thanksgiving, so I'll be also spending time with the family. I wish everyone here a chance to do the same. We'll have our next show in 2 weeks, but in the meantime, say hi on Slack, and yeah, we're looking forward to seeing you in New Camp. Take care, everyone. See you, Attila.
Bye everyone, thank you.
Bye bye.